All right, good morning, good afternoon. Appreciate anybody that's watching this, taking the time to learn a little bit today. My name's Joe Duffield. I'm the head boys basketball coach at Highlands High School here in Dallas, Texas. And just going to talk to you a little bit, hopefully give you some ideas on, elevating your program. So kind of going into a high school basketball program or school maybe has been struggling and sort of trying to bring that culture up, to elevate that culture to a championship culture. And I'm no expert or genius when it comes to this stuff. I've been blessed to work for some really good people. I've stolen a lot of really good ideas. And my hope is if you're watching this video that you can take away a couple things or ideas and implement them in your own program and help your team and school and community get a little bit better, because that's what it's all about for our kids that we work with every day. I'm going to share screen real quick and go into PowerPoint here. All right, and again, I'm going to share my contact information at the end of this little presentation. If you have any questions, if you need anything from this slideshow, or you want to ask more, please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to help anybody out in any way that I can. Just a little bit more about myself. I really think coaching is one of the greatest professions in the world. The ability to influence young people, to shape their lives, to leave a mark and make them better. It's really an honor. And I've been blessed and lucky to do it for the last 18 years, mostly in the Dallas area. I spent 6 years in Austin, spent 1 year in California, coaching high school basketball there as well. But entering now my 4th year as the head coach at Highlands High School. Got to give a quick shout out to my family, my wife, and I have 3 lovely daughters there. Family is a big piece of what we do and what our program is about. So I can't kind of do anything without honoring them and recognizing them, because they're my number one team. They asked me for the presentation here to kind of what's the problem and what is the solution. So I wanted to look at, okay, I'm going into a new high school and the program's kind of struggled. There's not a lot of pride. Maybe it's a new school and they're trying to build. So how can we get some ideas or implement some new things that might help to really take that program kind of to the next level? And very fortunate to have great players and parents at Vista Ridge. That was the school I was at in Austin for 3 years, and we made progress every year. And that last year we ended up being 31-5, and one of the best seasons I've ever been a part of. And I think a lot of these things helped us just get a little bit better each year. Made the move after that, year 3 there, back to Dallas, where I'm from. And at Highlands, when I took over the year before, the team was 4-27, and they were 1-13 in district. And so we really had to change the sort of losing culture and start to build a winning culture. And it took time, and this is not easy. And with any school business, you're trying to change the way people think, the way people act, the way people work. Definitely takes time. And we were able to do that year after year and get a little bit better. In the last 2 years, we've been in the playoffs. This past year we played a really tough competitive schedule. It was good for us, but I think our record's not necessarily reflective of how good we were. But when you're doing this, I think the things at the bottom are going to kind of be the things that we talk about. You've got to have a vision, and whether that's a school, a basketball program, a business, you have to be able to really clearly explain your vision and have clear goals, and your players need to have that as well. You got to create an identity. If people watch your team and school perform, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What do you do different than everybody else? And then how do you build your total program? What are you doing to, implement your community? What are you doing to build your feeder systems? How do you get crowds at the games? Kind of things like that. Student involvement, community involvement. And then just some ideas on players, because you don't win any of these games without developing players and great young people. And so we'll talk about ownership and leadership in that sense too. I think great coaches are all great thieves. Everything I do here is something I've probably stolen from someone else. I've been fortunate to work for some great coaches. I had to list them there. Pat Brown in Austin. Rob Wiley was when I was an assistant at Lake Highlands before becoming the head coach. Jeff Stout and Jimmy Rowe are some coaches that really have had a big impact on me. I think if you're a young coach, you definitely want to find some older coaches or competitors that you can trust, that you can ask questions. And as I work with younger coaches today, I think that's something that maybe people don't do enough. Seek out advice, find a coach that you respect, and just ask them some questions. Take the time to learn from them, and then when you have problems or issues that come up, it's great to have people that you can lean on. Your staff is really important. Your assistant coaches, the people you work with every day, that in season and off season, I spend more time with these people than my own family. So really important that they're loyal, that you have shared beliefs and values. I think that's one of the biggest things in really turning the corner and becoming a great program is having a great staff. And then you've got to keep learning. If you're watching this presentation today, then you've taken the opportunity to get a little bit better, and that's a big part of it. Our game, basketball, is always changing, and you've got to keep up with that change if you want to be relevant to your players, and if you want to be effective. You can't do the same thing you were doing 10, 20 years ago. There's tons of great opportunities out there to learn in Texas. I do have to give a shout out to the Hardwood Texas website. It's a lot of high school coaches are there. It's a great tool. They've got a lot of great videos. A lot of college coaches have great newsletters, so I'd go there. And social media has become a great tool for learning. Twitter, has a lot of good stuff to use as well. I always like when I see a speaker or a presentation at a clinic, I like book recommendations. These are just some great books that have been special to me kind of lately and over time. The Power of Moments. If you have not read that book and you're in education, coaching, business, it is an amazing book. Buzz Williams from Texas A&M is who recommended it, and man, I really highly recommend that if you are wanting to really step up your organization. The Wooden book is really good. We're doing a book study with our team over that book right now. It's really an easy read, and it really breaks up really well where you can do some good lessons with your kids. So that's a great book if you're wanting to do a book study with your team. Keep Going by Joseph Marshall about perseverance. This book has been really helpful to me in the tough years. So the years when you're rebuilding or taking over, it's not easy to change habits and culture, and it's a great book to kind of get you through that. And then The Relentless, Tim Grover, Michael Jordan's trainer, a great book about what makes guys like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, like not just the great players, but the absolute superstar competitors, what makes them tick and what makes them great. I do think that really the wins and losses, we put a lot of stock into winning and playoffs and championships and district titles, but this is the most important thing you have to do as a coach, and it's develop character. Basketball is a tool. It's something that we use to teach life lessons, to teach young men to be men of character, and that's the most important thing we do. 5-10 years from now, it's not going to be important how many games we won, but it will be important that your players become great men, great fathers, great husbands, great workers, bosses, whatever it is. And we talk about this almost daily. And I think that you've got to be intentional about this with your programs. And I think when your kids know that you care about developing that part of who they are, I really truly believe they're going to have a lot more buy-in to the basketball side of things. And I think it starts with you as a head coach, as a leader. You have to really live out what you say, and your kids are watching you, your players are watching you every day. and they're going to learn a lot more from what you do than anything that you say. And so you've got to model great behavior, great leadership. I talk to our staff a lot, you know, how you treat the custodian, how you treat a teacher, a boss, the police officer at school, the lunch lady. You know, your kids see all those interactions. And, you know, if you want to talk about being a great person, having championship character, then you've got to live that out every day. You know, I think the most valuable lessons that we can teach our kids in basketball is how to deal with and respond to adversity, because they're going to have that in life no matter what. And basketball is a great teacher for that. And how to be a part of a team, how to put the importance of other people before yourself, how to be team first, how to be family first. And we talk a lot about that, and that's going to translate into life when they are fathers, husbands, and things like that. And that's your legacy as a coach. You know, the influence you have as far as developing character is the most important thing that you do. So the first thing, if you're taking over a new program, you're going to have a parent meeting, you're going to have a player meeting. You've got to have a vision. You have to have clear goals. And I think if I was going into that first parent meeting, you know, I want to be really specific and really have a big vision and big goals. You know, when I was coaching in Austin, we talked about being the first team from Austin to win a state championship. No team from Austin, Texas has won a state championship at the 6A level, at the 5A, the highest level. And that was our goal. And we talked about it when they were 8th graders, 9th graders, all the way up. And I think it's very important to have that goal. Back here in Dallas, we want to be a state championship team. You know, we haven't hit that goal yet, but you know, it's kind of the whole thing of strive for perfection. You're never going to hit it, but if you don't hit it, you're going to find excellence. And so I think you have to have a clear vision. We're also big here at Lake Highlands, the school I'm at now. We want our basketball team to show what's great about our community, and that's another part of our vision. And we have a very diverse mix of people at Lake Highlands, and I think that's one of the great things about our school. We have so many different ethnic backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, and our basketball team is a reflection of that. And we want to show what's great about that is when those pieces all come together and we work well together, it's a beautiful thing. So that's something we talk about too, about making our community proud. But you've got to really sell that. And also with your vision, you need to have a clear identity and culture. So what does that look like? Everybody uses the buzzword of culture, and you know, I think it's got to be very simple and clearly defined where your players can articulate it. Could your middle school players talk about what your identity is, what your culture is? Do your high school players know what it is? And so we kind of break it up into two ways. Our identity is sort of how we play. What does Lake Highlands basketball look like? If you go to a JV game, a varsity game, an 8th grade game, what does that basketball look like? That's kind of our identity. And then our culture is the things that we do every day, our habits and what drives our habits, you know. And so that's kind of how we look at those two things. You know, I think your basketball identity, what your team looks like, you know, I think of the great teams in college and they all have a clear basketball identity, right? You watch a Virginia game with Tony Bennett, the pack line defense, blocker, mover, it looks a certain way. You watch Roy Williams at North Carolina, their secondary break, the way they get up and down, you know, Kansas, Michigan State, there's a clear identity. Their teams are going to play a certain way. It's going to look a certain way. And there's no right way. There's so many different ways to play this game. Pick what you're passionate about. Pick what you know, what you can teach well, and what fits your system, what fits your kids. But I think you want to clearly define that. So what we want Lake Highlands basketball to look like is we want to play fast, we want to play great defense, and we want to play unselfish. And so, you know, if we're at a summer camp with 4th and 5th graders, we're talking about these three things. If we're at a junior high or middle school practice, we're talking about these three things. And we talk about it just about every day. We want to play fast. We want to get out and run. We want to play in transition. We want to be great at defense. We want to excel at being good and playing good team and individual defense. And we're going to be an unselfish team. We're going to acknowledge a good pass. We're going to make the extra pass. We're going to really find joy in our teammates' success. But that's really our identity. So we tell our parents, we tell our players, if you come to a Lake Highlands game, you're going to see this style of play. So that's kind of our identity. Our culture is built on our core values, and a lot of great programs have different ones. These are the big ones to us. Family is the most important thing. That's our number one core value, and something we talk about every single day. I'm a big believer on that. I want our guys to truly feel like there's a family atmosphere, and there's lots of different ways we do that. But I think that's the most important thing that we can do. And we try to, as coaching staffs, we try to get our families involved as much as we can, coming to team dinners, coming to practices, being at the games, so our players can see what it's like for us to be fathers, to be part of a family. And we talk about it, how that shows itself on the court as well. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But appreciation, work ethic, enthusiasm, and accountability. Those are our other 4 core values that I think are really important in teaching young people. And all of these things, we can relate them to basketball, but they're also really relatable to life, to being a student, to being a member of our community. So we use basketball to teach these things, but we hope that these things carry over into their adult life. And so, I'll talk a little bit about how we do a couple of those things in regards to practice and basketball and grading game film, whatever. We can look at these things. We always focus on the process, getting better every day. I think that's huge. I know that's a cliche term, but it really is important. If you get a little bit better every day, even now we're not in the gym, we're staying at home, but we're asking our kids to get a little bit better every day. And if we're doing that, we feel like we can hit our big goals. So the question is, how do you integrate your core values? Everybody has these core values, these buzzwords, but if I walked into your practice, do I see these things being emphasized? Do I see your core values? And I think, I like some of the things that we do. So if we are starting a practice, this is a practice plan here from one of our first practices, we'll put 20 sprints on the board. So home fouls or visitor score, we'll put a 20 up there as we start practice. And we've got a core value every day. One of those 5 core values we're going to emphasize every day. So in this particular practice, we're talking about our number 1 core value, which is family. And we talk about it in our huddle before we start practice. And what does a family look like on the court? Well, to us, that's sprinting to help a teammate up. It's having great communication. So you're on defense and you're really talking to your teammates. It's diving on the floor, sacrificing your body, making a sacrifice for a family member. Taking a charge is a great example of that. So anytime any of those things happen in practice, we'll knock that 20 down. That's how many sprints we're going to run at the end of practice. So guy dives on the floor for a loose ball, everybody's helping him up, and we're knocking that 20 down to 19. We're knocking it down to 18. And we'll do the same thing if it's the other way around. If you give up in the middle of a play or give up in a drill, we talk about that in relationship to family. That's not what you do in a family. You don't walk out on your family when things get tough. And so we'd add a point. And then at the end of the practice, whatever's on the board, we'd run for that. Now we do the same thing for our other core values. So say accountability is one of our core values. Well, if you miss a layup, are you doing your push-ups? Are you holding yourself accountable? When we talk about accountability, we talk about coach to player accountability. So you missed that layup, the coach is going to tell you, hey, do your push-ups. That's accountability. That's one level of accountability. Then there's player to self accountability, right? So Johnny goes up, he misses the layup, and he goes over and he does his push-ups. He's holding himself accountable. The last part of accountability is player to player. And we feel like that's where we want our program to be at. So the coaches shouldn't have to do anything in holding each other accountable. So if Johnny misses that layup, Bobby over in line, he's telling Johnny, hey, you missed that. get your push-ups. And when your program takes that on, that player-to-player accountability, and they take ownership of things themselves, that's when you've got something that can be pretty powerful. So we do that with all of our core values. I'd encourage you to think about, if you have core values, how are you putting that into practice every day? And if you have any more questions about that, I can give you ideas on how we do our other forms of accountability or core values within practice. These are a couple pictures from our gyms kind of after we've kind of made the program a lot stronger. I wish I had some pictures of, this is Vista Ridge here on top in Austin. I wish I had some pictures of this gym, and even the gyms on the bottom is Lake Highlands here in Dallas. But I wish I had some pictures of year one. And both of these places, year one, year two, the stands are empty. And, you know, I think, you know, this is ultimately what you want for your community, for your players, for your program, is to put an amazing, great product on the floor and to build excitement around your program. And I think there's some ways that we as coaches, as head coaches, should be accountable to making that happen. So I'm just going to give you some ideas, some things that we do, and maybe you can take a couple of these and implement them or apply them to your own program. These are a number of different things that we do that I think helps. You know, I think you need to think about creating traditions and experiences for your guys. You know, so what do you do different that the program down the road doesn't do? What do you do different that kid may not experience playing another sport at your school? You know, what do you do that kid's really going to remember that was just something different? I think too many coaches, we go in and we're worried about the practice every day and the game on Tuesday or the game on Friday. And we don't think about adding in, you know, a lot of the things that these guys really remember aren't just the game. It's some of these other things you do outside of the normal basketball routine. So these are some of the things that we do. I'll kind of touch on a little bit of each one of these in the bullet points. So I'm not going to go through each one right now, but these are just some ideas. So we do a basketball tip-off every year. It's kind of similar to a college midnight madness. We have a dunk contest, a three-point shootout. You know, we have a DJ. We invite as many student groups as possible because it really ends up bringing in other parents and gets the stands packed. But we'll have the cheerleaders perform and the dance team perform. And we try to incorporate other programs and administration. So if we have a dunk contest, we want the captain of the football team to be a judge and the captain of the volleyball team to be a judge and our assistant principal to be a judge, maybe a former player. You know, we want all our feeder schools, and just, it's about building excitement for your program, for your team. There's been years where the boys and girls do some things together. We'll have a three-point shootout where the best boy competes against the best girl. And it's just been a really good thing. And it's been fun everywhere that I've been to watch this event. Each year it gets a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. You can see these are some old flyers, but the first year we were, hey, it's free, just come on in. And then this past year we ended up charging people because we had such a good crowd because people wanted to come. This is something our kids really, really look forward to. You know, the dunk contest, they're thinking about it weeks in advance. So I'd encourage you to do something like this. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me about, you know, I can give you our format and schedule and all that if you'd like it. I think community service is huge. One of our core values is appreciation. Our kids nowadays are very wrapped up in themselves with the phones and the social media. And I think it's your duty to really get your team out there serving your community. In basketball, Thanksgiving and Christmas are great holidays that fall in the course of our season. I encourage you to do community service during these times. We always adopt families during Christmas that need a little extra help, and we'll have groups and Brett split up into teams. And so each player kind of picks one kid in the family that they get gifts for. And we even wrap the gifts and go on shopping together. That's kind of a fun thing to do. You give the kids each a little budget and they have to shop and buy things in the budget. That's a good lesson as well. Thanksgiving is another time to prepare meals, to do some things. I think if you're not doing this, you're missing the boat. Teaching your kids to be about things outside themselves and give back is really important. You know, we've done a lot of charity things. We do a 3-on-3 tournament There's one in our local community that's become huge. We have about 200 teams participate every year, and it gives money back to our elementary schools. We also partnered with the American Heart Association and sold wristbands to get into our games, and all that money went back to the American Heart Association. So just other ways to get your kids, your program, your community understanding that you're not just about the X's and O's and wins. You're about giving back and being great for the community. I think that's another way to elevate your program. Team building. I really think, team chemistry, communication, character, I think those are often overlooked by a lot of coaches. And everybody's got a lot of different ideas. We were really blessed in Leander ISD and Austin. They have built-in ropes courses at every high school campus. So you can see those pictures there. That was amazing to be able to go do a ropes course right on your campus. And we do that in the preseason. And anytime we made the playoffs and we had kind of that extra week, we'd take a day rather than being in the gym and go out and do that ropes course. We have a great place here in DFW called Group Dynamics. That's a kind of an indoor ropes course. But there's tons of great ideas out there in team building. And again, this is an experience all these kids are going to remember, way more so than maybe the game on Tuesday night. You put them in a situation where they're jumping off a 40 or 50 foot pole or doing something they've never done before. That's when you're really going to build something special through those shared experiences. I think it's big to try to get your kids out of wherever you're at. I know in some school districts, they limit your travel and where you can go. We try to go to a college team camp every summer. That's a great opportunity for our kids to stay in the dorms, to visit a college campus. And when we do our end of year feedback, a lot of kids say this is the favorite thing that they did. And then we always try to go to one out of town tournament during the course of our season. This past year, we were able to go to San Diego to the Torrey Pines Invitational, which was an amazing tournament, amazing competition. And we had a couple kids, we flew, and we had a couple kids this year as their first time ever on a plane. And so again, creating these experiences, creating the opportunities for your team to bond together is really something they'll remember, and it creates a different level of chemistry, in my opinion. So I would definitely recommend you trying to do that. And then how do you work? You want to pack the stands at your games. What do you do to support the other programs or things at your school? We have an annual scrimmage with the girls soccer team. Here you can see this is one of our senior captains dressed up like an elf at the football game. Make your kids go to a band concert together, a choir concert, or a theater production. If you really want your school culture to change, and I think when I first came to Lake Highlands, our culture was not good. People didn't support each other. It was, oh, the basketball team's sorry. Oh, they suck. You hear that talk in the hallways, and I'm proud after 4 years at Lake Highlands, we really the whole program culture has changed where we really do support each other. And I think one program, one team can change that in a school if you're intentional about it. And these are just some ideas to do it. Same thing with your faculty, right? What do you do for the teachers? Do you have an honorary faculty game where each kid invites a teacher and you honor them? Do you make breakfast? There's lots of different things people do for that, but good things to think about. And then the other thing that's really important is your elementary and middle school people. I think your best way to promote your program is through your camps. I'm huge on putting on a great summer camp. Now we do a winter clinic, and our numbers have just gone through the roof in the last 4 years. I think the first year we probably had about 80 campers. At our winter clinic this year, we had to cap it once it got to 200 because we didn't have enough space or coaches. But if you run a great camp, those kids and those parents are going to tell their friends, and they're going to bring their buddy next year. There's lots of special things you can do with camp, and if you want extra ideas on that, I'd love to share some of the things that we do on what makes running a great camp. But I think the good programs and good coaches get this piece and do it really well. Another great thing we do, I stole this from somebody, but in the course of our season, we'll go practice. We'll take our high school kids and we'll go practice at our feeder schools. So we'll have a practice at Lake Highlands Junior High and Forest Meadow Junior High are our two feeder middle schools, our junior highs, and we'll take our varsity and JV and have practice in their gym. And it's great for our high school players get to go back to their old gym, but it's really great for these junior high kids to watch what a Lake Highlands basketball practice looks like. And, it's a big opportunity for us to say, this is our culture, this is our identity. You should see it out here in the way that we practice. And this is how we want you guys to practice. This is how we want you guys to improve every day. That's a great thing that we do that I'd really recommend. And then anytime you have your feeder schools playing each other, I'd always say, host that at your school so you can have that at your high school. That's a great thing you can do as well. We do have a clinic for our feeder schools, our coaches, where we bring them to a Saturday practice and we kind of give them packets and show them these are the things we really want you to teach and do with our feeder schools. And you've got to have that alignment 7 through 12 if you want to have a great program. And then get your kids out to your local schools. Send them to the elementary schools. Opening car doors. We do a thing, we call it High Five Fridays, where they get out and they're just greeting kids at the door. But man, it's a cool thing for your players to realize how much these young kids look up to them in the community. And again, it's just a way to promote your program. You do this on a Friday, you might have 10 kids that morning that come to the game Friday night that otherwise wouldn't have. They didn't even know about the game, but you're saying, hey, High Five Friday, hey, game tonight, come on out. That's something I never say no to. If an elementary school says, hey, we've got a book club, hey, we've got a pep rally, we need a couple players, I'm always going to send our guys. We have a real cool thing in Richardson ISD where we have an elementary league. So we've hosted the Final Four for our elementary league the last 3 years. And again, it's just a way to get to know the young kids that love basketball in your program and to promote your program. And then again, with tradition, do you bring back former players and coaches? We have a wall of fame at Lake Highlands, and they hadn't added anybody to it for probably 7 or 8 years. So as soon as I got here, that was something we did. We have some great former players. This is Warren Carter, who went to the University of Illinois. Was Mr. Basketball in Texas, and he needed to be in that wall of fame, and so we did that. And we honored a former coach this year as well. But man, that's special for your kids for them to know that they're part of a great tradition. Another great thing we do, we have ball boys every home game, and so sometimes it'll be a team from our local elementary school. Sometimes we'll have drawings or elementary schools will auction it off. But they get to come to the game. They're kind of part of warm-ups. They bring water on the bench. They get in the huddle pregame. Sometimes we'll have them come to our team dinners the night before a game and really get a sense of what Lake Highlands basketball is like. And the kids love this. Again, if all these kids are at the game, their parents are going to be there too. That's going to pack the stands as well. So that's a great thing that we do, every home game. And then, getting involved with your community, local businesses, all these things add up to people in the seats and people rallying behind your program. We love this sideline interactive scores table. We bought it 4 years ago. They are expensive, $7,000 to $10,000 on the initial buy. But every year we sell ads to run at our games, and we've probably made $5,000 to $8,000 a year selling these ads. And so, we paid for the table in year 2, and the last 2 years we're making $5,000 to $8,000 a year just for our booster club selling ads. If you don't have the table, you can sell banners in your gym. We have a cool thing. We have a 3-point sponsor, a slam dunk sponsor. So anytime we dunk the ball in a game or hit a 3, we shout out to that sponsor. I have paperwork if you're interested in I can show you our advertising package and all that if that's something you're interested in. And then lastly, you don't get any of this unless you put a good product on the floor. So you've got to develop your players. What is your player development plan? How much do you open the gym in the off season, in season? We try not to ever tell our players no, they can't get in the gym. We open it every morning before school for an hour. We stay after school for an hour and a half, 2 hours. We're definitely going to give them opportunities to get in the gym and get better. How do you do it when you have coaching limitations? We're not allowed to coach them certain parts of the year. Well, I've had great success bringing back former players and even coaches, older coaches that may be retired, and they come in and run a practice or do something in the off season. I think that's a great thing to do to continue to develop your guys. We do encourage our guys to play AAU and summer basketball. I think you've got to do that if you want to be competitive at a high level. And I think it's up to you to help your players get exposure, get recruited, and get them out, their word out there to colleges about them. And I've gotten a lot better with this in the past few years. And if you have questions about that, I do think that's our job too, to help these kids that want to play at the next level. There's a place for them to play if you really work hard at it and you develop good relationships. And that wasn't something I was great at early in my career, but I think it's something we're doing a better job of now. We sent all 4 seniors last year to play college basketball. This year we've got 2 signed, one to A&M Corpus Christi and one to Rogers State, Division I and Division II. And then think about ways to give and get player feedback year in and year out. What's good about your program? What can you improve? I think that's one of the most valuable tools we have is these surveys and player feedback forms. And then again, going back to the character development. How are you teaching leadership? How are you teaching character, chemistry, communication? I think you have to have a plan and a program in place for that. We're doing a ton of that right now with the shelter in place. So anyway, that's what I've got. I hope that maybe there's a couple things that you can steal from us. If you have any questions or want any more ideas or paperwork on anything that we've shared here, please feel free to send me an email. We have the school address, and that's the office phone as well. But just shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to get you anything that you may need. But thank you for taking the time. I hope you learned something from this, and good luck in building your own championship program.